I serve as a professor of economics at Jawaharlal Nehru University for last since 1980, so it's close to 40 years. I'm professor emeritus in JNU now. I set up a research institute called Indian Institute of Dalit Studies in 2003. And now the institute undertakes research on issues related to the marginalized group, issues of discrimination, exclusion, the causes of discrimination, the consequences of discrimination, and the policies. We began with caste, scheduled caste, but eventually extended to scheduled tribe, Dalit women, Muslim women, nomadic and semi-nomadic, denotified tribes. We have sort of a group concept as far as research is concerned. For last 30, 40 years, I have written on the issues of Dalit and discrimination. I think about close to 20 books now, out of which more than half of them on these issues. So my basic preoccupation has been that there are intercaste disparities in the level of living and human development. One of the reason, of course, obviously, is the common reason which affect the non-scheduled castes also. If you are a poor, you don't have access to a asset, you don't have access to education, your employability is low, you are unemployed. So there are some of the factors which are common, and you could explain the intercaste disparities, say, between scheduled caste and the high caste. But another prominent reason is, of course, discrimination. That even if you have asset, even if you have education, and you enter into the market for a job, you enter into a market for sale and purchase of commodities as a farmer or as an entrepreneur, you face discrimination. So discrimination is an additional cause that affect the scheduled caste and lower their income, lower their employment. Similarly, the business person and the farmer face discrimination. This cause of backwardness and the poverty of the scheduled caste and the gap between them and other has been highly under researched. So my attempt has been for last 20 years or so is to understand what is the nature of discrimination in various market, labor, input market, factory market, employment, faced by business person, farmer, and the employees, and also the discrimination faced by scheduled castes in the non-market institution, that is the government institutions and the institutions sponsored by the government. On the whole, the objective has been to estimate empirically what is the extent of discrimination, what is its nature, what are its consequences on the income and the poverty of the scheduled caste, and then how to overcome. So that they suggest the policies also of different type of affirmative action policy. That has been my preoccupation, to really understand the causes of their high poverty and deprivation and marginalization, but particularly in addition to the general causes, identifying discrimination as a source and suggesting policies and undertaking advocacy with the government in terms of policy outcome. I come from a small village in Maharashtra, and ever since I began to understand the situations, the locality where I stayed is a segregated locality, slightly away from the high caste. So you could see that you would accept it naturally, but as you grow, and then you start raising question. I also saw that most of the scheduled castes in the villages were landless laborer. Very few of them are small farmer. Quite a few of them are dropout and not educated. Very few of them have job. Now, this disparity I could see as I grew as a child. Also, I was part of the anti-caste movement in the village as a child. As a part of the extended movement of Dr. Ambedkar, we did not have access to well, we did not have access to temple. When I was in the third standard, there was no building for the schools. We used to sit in the temple. So Dalit children would sit quite close to the door while the high caste would sit near the god. So that differentiation we could see. And I was a part of that civil rights movement, anti-caste movement, me, my brother. I could see that why the situation of scheduled caste is so bad in terms of why are they discriminated, why they are poor, why don't have land, why don't they have equal access to education. I think with all this question and even element of activism, I entered in Million College of Arts, Aurangabad, which was set up by Dr. Ambedkar. There also I was quite active. I was a part of the student federation. Then this student federation was converted into Dalit Panther in early 70s. So I became automatically a member of the Dalit Panther. But I was always in dilemma that whether I should do this activism through academic and understand it, or through direct participate in social movement or political movement. And I think somehow naturally my inclination was towards academic. So I remain activist. I was closely associated with several organizations, continued to be now also, but I prefer academic. Well, there was a great urge to do some research to understand the situation of the Dalit. I found there was nothing by way of courses. The center I was a faculty, there was no course related to the situation of people, marginalized people in society, or theories of that is explaining their background. It was a very, very frustrating life, yeah, as a faculty. And I also taught in Iowa State University, USA. It is there, it was my great urge to get in touch with the economics of discrimination. I got a link, developed link with the African American faculty and the active group. I was very keen on to understand the problem of agriculture because I come from a dry area and related to agriculture. We had a 4 acre of land, and I used to help my father to drive a plow. So a lot of interest in agriculture economics. So my PhD was in agriculture economics, problem of dry land agriculture. But eventually, my interest then shifted towards issue of poverty and inequality, other than the intercaste inequality. So when I was in IPRI, International Food Policy Research Institute, for next 5 to 6 years, I worked with a Chinese scholar and a British academic. Disparities in land distribution was one of the themes which attracted me. So I wrote that first paper with them. But then we took a topic called public investment, public expenditure, and its impact on growth and poverty. This was a very new topic. We collected a massive data right from early 70s till the mid 80s, I think, state-wise, and brought out the linkages of public expenditure with growth and poverty. And that became a very famous paper. That led to the studies in China, in South Asia, and Africa. I have a book on slum. I did a study and edited a book on child labor in South Asia. Then a couple of books, of course, on Ambedkar. Rural development, I have another book. So these are some of the general themes I began to work. But nevertheless, you will see that the issue of poverty, inequality, growth, pro-poor growth, inclusive growth, child labor, slum, these are the issues which are on concern of marginalized group. When I joined as a director of the Indian Institute of Dalit Studies, the first study, with a lot of effort, I got the funding was from ILO. I proposed them that I will undertake a study in 14 states on labor market discrimination. The first attempt was to study the labor market discrimination, and I faced huge challenges of developing the concept. What do I mean by caste-based labor market discrimination? What are the forms? What are the indicator whereby you can capture it? And then much more difficult is untouchability. Valmikis, for example, consider polluting and impure people. How does it affect their access to employment? I went to the houses of Valmiki people, Charmakar. I had some hypotheses, and it came out very clearly that they face discrimination while they are forced to work in certain areas which involve physical and hard work. They are debarred from undertaking work in other areas like domestic work, or at time the grocery shop, because high caste won't buy if scheduled caste is the seller, or they won't get a job in a restaurant. Some of my hypotheses came out quite clearly, but it was a three-village study: Haryana, Maharashtra, and one more state, I think UP possibly. National Campaign on Dalit Human Rights had done a study on midday meal scheme, so they gave me the data. And we found that there was a lot of discrimination in midday meal scheme, serving the midday meal to the scheduled caste. I had that idea always that this discrimination is not confined to labor market alone. Possibly that scheduled caste farmer, scheduled caste entrepreneurs face discrimination. But more than that, the scheduled caste also face discrimination in accessing the government scheme. Gradually, then from labor market, we switch over to government scheme. we took a very extensive study of 8 states. We took 7, 8 schemes, a scheme that are related to farmer, scheme that are related to entrepreneur or business person. Then Anganwadi. There we have also included minorities, particularly the Muslim. The discrimination that faced by the scheduled caste in accessing the scheme was quite clear. So that was one of the extension beyond labor market. Discrimination is something which cover every aspect of life of untouchables. It may be social, economic, political, and cultural. And in market, not only labor, but farmer would face, entrepreneur should face. The another area we entered into is the education institution and health institution. There had been an illusion that the government institution like education do not practice discrimination. They are secular institution. People are educated, but we brought out the forms of discrimination in the higher education institution, and later the issues of education discrimination blew up quite a lot with suicide cases of the scheduled caste. But the point that I am making is that we had to give an academic fight from 2003 to 2008 to convince the private sector that discrimination. See, they say no, our market works on the basis of merit and prices. But we gave them the evidence. Gradually, they accepted, and their affirmative action policy was later on developed. So their challenges are at two levels. The studies on caste discrimination, particularly with respect to Dalit, doesn't get a proper reception. You are not encouraged to undertake research on that stage. I remember one example, I had written a book on Dr. Ambedkar, economics of Dr. Ambedkar's history on economic development and all that. I issued one comment that, well, this is not economics. If you have to have a promotion from assistant to associate, you should also work on proper economy. So that is the attitude. But if you are bold enough psychologically to overcome that complex, there are many of them who get affected by those attitude and do not work. But the major problem, as I said, is that there are no literature from Indian side on theories of economics of caste. And if you don't have theories of economics of caste, which means that you don't understand the economics of caste and economic dimension of caste, then there are issues. So, as I said, there are only 3 to 4 people who have developed some theories to understand the economic dimension of caste. All of them 3 are from USA. There is an attempt now, but I'm talking about 20 years, 30 years before. But even the current attempt are also very, very extremely weak. What I had to do is to read myself on economics aspect of the caste, and I think the greatest help that I get was from Dr. Ambedkar. His literature on caste is so vast, but so scattered. But I think Ambedkar's writing really help you to get an insight and understand the economic feature that how caste is deny right to property, right to occupation, right to education, how it is based on graded inequality, and how the property right go down in caste hierarchy. What are the consequences on economic growth and inequality? A very difficult journey that I faced when undertaking research, and you have to then listen to the comments. I remember that one of our report was not accepted by one organization because they found it too much to absorb. In fact, I must say that I have improved my methodology on labor market discrimination by undertaking 3 studies. Each successive attempt of study, I improved. And yet I am not very confident even at the moment that whether I am following, whether my methodology capture the entire reality. Then observation, recording it. So I think we developed several methods, additional methods, so that we can capture the discrimination, because discrimination is a social phenomena. It is embedded into your relationship. It's very difficult to capture, but eventually we got something. So networks and handholding plays a very important role. There is a huge network that you find in India, which is often based on caste, often based on religious identity. The Dalit academic has difficulties in getting into those network and also getting hand-holding. If you look at my discipline of economics, the young scholar write as a joint author with supervisor, some seniors, and they are groom up, and then they became independent researcher and write papers. Now that hand-holding is very, very important. Get the access to the network is very, very difficult. I face that problem. I don't think I got sufficient access to the network in India. This is a very serious statement I am making, partly for my own limitation and partly for the fact that the network do not allow you enough access, good access. I think one of the problem of Dalit academic is this, that they don't have access to the network, and then there is no positive handholding. I was able to get access to this literature partly because I stayed in USA and developed connection, but partly because I also came across friends and I work with them. I think my research covered labor market discrimination, then some studies on farmers. They are yet to come out. Then some studies on entrepreneurs and also the government scheme, but also education institutions. But in education institution only, we have been able to touch the school sector, not the higher education sector. There is no good study on higher education sector.
Okay.
But I think the National Institute of Education Planning and Administration has done a study of discrimination in higher education institution. Professor Sukumar from Delhi School University, who is in political science, he has a project on economic discrimination in higher education institution. So there is gradually now there is some literature coming on the nature of discrimination in higher education institution. It's always very difficult. My report, All India Institute of Medical Sciences, discrimination is there, but I think this is still is in the preliminary stages. We do not have a solid book published by a reputed publisher which really brings out the nature of discrimination being faced by the scheduled caste in the higher education institution. Similarly, in health, we have one or two paper, mainly by Sangamitra Seal. School education also limited. So I think that area need to be really examined. But there is a discrimination in say education sector which is significant, which impact the performance of the scheduled caste student, resulting into the dropout, psychological problems. Health, we know there is the issue of access to health services, but we need to study much more. But there are other sector which we have not, I think, touch upon as far as the discrimination is concerned. I think among researcher, I think yeah, you may agree or you may not agree, but I think the Gary Baker, who has written that first book on economics of discrimination, uh, then similarly by Arrow, both were Nobel laureate. Uh, Amartya Sen's work on social exclusion is important. I learned quite a lot from that. The discussion paper that he wrote for the Asian Development Bank, I think in Bangkok. William Darity, my friend, is a fantastic scholar. He brought out the entire literature on economics of discrimination in two volumes by Elgar, huge volume. Now, in fact, the most important is that the second stage of studies on discrimination after 1995, he and me, we are editing Economics of Race and Caste, again being brought out by Elgar. Samuel Meyer, not worked with, but interacted extensively with Samuel Meyer, who is in the Minnesota University, Roy Wilkins Center. And there are a couple of others, I don't remember their name, but they are from Latin American countries.
Okay.
Yeah, because their identity issue is close to us, it's ethnic identity, and so these are some of the scholars, which have influenced my work, or alternatively, I must say that I have benefited from it. As far as books are concerned, I think I will recommend people to read Gary Baker's book, Economics of Discrimination, then the work, certain paper by Arrow. Most important author, of course, I forgot, and from which I benefited also, is Akraloff. Akraloff is the one who has given the theory of caste. Akraloff's recent book is Adult and Identity. I will recommend for everybody that they should read this book. And then this volume edited by William Darity, because it covers, I think, literature right from 1970 or even earlier before that till 1995. Everything, all theories of discrimination, all empirical studies of discrimination covering all the fields. There is also an article on untouchability by Banerjee there. So I think that volume is very, very important. But there are 2, 3 edited books on discrimination in Latin America. My co-author, Catherine Newman, is one of the co-editor of that book. Indian context, not quite significantly. On inequality, there are many of them. But discrimination, I think, I would say, is Madheshwaran from ISAC, Institute of Social and Economic Change. He has consistently working on issues of discrimination. Ashim Prakash from Tata Institute of Social Science, Hyderabad. He has worked on this issue. I think the most important author is Ashwini Deshpande. He is the first faculty member who introduced a course on economics of discrimination at MA level and consistently work on the issues of discrimination. Her book, Grammar of Caste, is a fantastic book. It's a textbook and everybody should use it for teaching. Then, of course, continuously she has been working. So all her papers are very innovative, new. She pick up new themes and undertake studies on discrimination. A singular author, nobody can avoid her. For the young scholar and a new scholar, first they should get acquainted with the economics aspect of the caste system, and that means that involve 2 issues. One is the features of the caste system, the economic factor that decide the caste system, and I think the conceptualization. They should read theories of caste. I think Dr. Ambedkar can come to the help quite a lot. Secondly, they should be well versed methods, statistical method. Unfortunately, the methods are complicated, but doesn't matter. Whatever you can understand and tolerate and manage, handle. If you are from sociology or economic background or political science, the discrimination is not confined to it. It is sociology. It's in political domain. They should read theories, be acquainted with the methods of undertaking research. But if you want to go ahead and contribute new, you should be able to know the techniques, survey method, to get the information from the ground. Well, these are some of the things which are necessary, but the greatest thing is the passion and interest.
This is really, really gracious of you, Professor. Thanks very much for taking out time from in Nagpur. And then thank you.
It was pleasure to talk to you. Yeah, both of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor.